Why would she choose the drugs over me? Why would she choose anything over me? God is like no time to stop. I'm Elle Harris. I am the founder and chairwoman of Worldwide Women Group, and today I get to sit next to someone I've known since I was 13. That's crazy.
So weird how we're in this place coming from middle school.
That's crazy.
Quniana is an amazing woman. I'm going to let her introduce herself to you.
I was just ready for whatever you was about to say. I was going with it, honey. So I'm Quniana Futrell, or Author Q. And I am the CEO of the ECE firm, where we empower communities everywhere. And I am grateful to be here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. It's funny how people always, say move forward, or people try to keep you in the box that you were in when you were younger. But I remember, even in 8th grade, you were still like this powerhouse. Like, you've always been this. You've just always been that person, bubbly, big personality. So just to see where you are today is amazing to actually be able to see that. So I told you once before, I don't say it often, but I just love everything that you're doing and speaking on things that people are afraid to talk about, even with your story with your mom. I think it is so amazing that you talk about that, because we don't have a safe space to be able to speak so freely. Excuse me. So today we're actually going to talk about moms. And I'm really interested to see how this is going to go.
Yeah, me too.
A while ago, I saw this post on social media, and it was like a quote or something, and it was saying why moms will never say sorry and why that's not okay. And I think that we get into this place where we feel like, or moms will say, I did the best that I could.
Yeah.
But is that really enough?
That's hard, because one of the things I'm learning, I'm working on a project now where I have 10 women who are going on a journey to share their Why My Mom story. And so when you think about, is the apology enough, or is them saying I did the best I knew how to do, is that enough? Honestly, it's going to have to be, right? It's going to have to be, because what else is there? One of the things that I'm learning, and that I've had to learn even with my own mother. So ever since I was a child, in and out of prison, in and out of jails, always stealing something with money in her pocket. Craziest thing I've ever been experienced in my life. And then on a very bad heroin addict. And so looking at her, I would think, gosh, she hated me. Why would she put me in so many different situations? Why would she choose the drugs over me? Why would she choose anything over me? Why wasn't I enough? So, talk about struggles and the things you deal with on the back end. That's something I always have to think about. Am I enough? And let's get the next degree to prove I am. And so when I look at her, I really have to take a step back to say, okay, when she apologizes, does she really mean it? Does she really know even what sorry is? Or is that just a thing that everybody just says so you be quiet? And so I had to ask her, talk to me about your childhood. Talk to me about where you come from. And it's funny enough, I had no idea that she had been molested as a child. I had no idea that some of the same mama issues and things that she felt lacked in came from her mom. And some of her history with family members and friends and community. And when she was a teen, she went and moved up north from the country and lived with my grandfather. And it's funny that her and my uncle both were the ones that moved up north, but were always the ones in jail on drugs and crazy. So I have to sit back and say, maybe she didn't plot it. Maybe she didn't lay there before getting down with my daddy and say, I can't wait to make this kid so I can ruin her life. Maybe she didn't, but I thought that. And so for her to tell me, some of the things she had been through, and for her to be open about some of her trauma, it made me empathetic toward her, so that I wouldn't continue to hate her, because I did. But it made me understand why she was the way she was. And just maybe that there was just a little bit of just hope that, maybe she didn't plot this out. Maybe she really does have unresolved trauma in her. And she just have no idea what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And she winging it just like the rest of us are. So maybe her apology is what it is. But does it come with change behavior all the time? Maybe not. But does she mean it when she says it? To her, she does.
So what do you feel like? I mean, I think with education and with experience, you learn some of those things, right? You're like, all right, this comes from trauma. This is this. So if I've never had any formal education, you know, outside of high school, how do I know? How do I know what to look at? If my mom, and I'll get into generational trauma in a second because you kind of touched on that. But how do I understand, you know, this is who my mom is because of this? Like, how do I what are those signals that I can say, all right, this is where this comes from, if I've never had that experience or that formal education?
You know, I think that's where things like this and the conversations like we're sharing today, that's what helps with that. So if more of us speak out on it, more people will become aware of it and more conscious of it. Because it's not something we hear, especially not in our community. You know, what goes on in this house
stays in this house.
And that's just what it is. Like, be quiet, you know, hush up and move on and be strong. Be strong.
Yes.
God, be strong.
Yes.
Yo, I'm tired. It's time to keep being strong now. I need to go to therapy or something. Go talk to my pastor. But I think that it really just is going to require more conversation. So the same way we can pump up a chicken sandwich is the same way we can pump up this generational trauma itself, and stop just acting like, you know, oh, it is what it is. Yeah, you went through Me Too, girl. No. Let's get some help with that. Because it really, trauma rewires things in your brain, like in your body. But we will just treat it like, oh, I'm just going through. No, there's a difference in going through and you're not getting something that you just wanted. You know, I just wanted this jacket and I couldn't get it. I'm just going through right now. Okay. But you like physically being beaten or being abandoned or being molested, or those things aren't just you just going through and you need to be quiet about it and read the Bible and pray it off and have faith. That's something.
Just a spirit. That's just a spirit.
That's not a thing. And we have to get out of that, especially in our culture, because, you know, therapy is for crazy people. You know, you weak if you ask for help. And that's so crazy. That's something that my father taught me. He taught me that when you ask for help, that meant you were weak. So for years, even now, like my assistant is so funny. She checks me all the time. Like, hello, hey, that's what I'm here for. Hey, stop. You can't do everything. That's what you pay me for. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I'm working on it. But this is like, you know, years in the making. I've been a kid, taught this, train up a child.
Yes.
I've been trained to know this. So it's hard to depart from it.
Oh my goodness. When you say that, I just think about training up a child and the generational trauma that you've experienced.
Train them up.
Because they won't depart from it, because it'll just follow them. And so I always talk to people and I say, like, when you become the generational curse breaker, it is the toughest thing in the world. Because especially if something has been going on from your mom to your grandmother to your great-grandmother and beyond, you are the one that has to come in and break the mold of all the pain that everyone else has. So let's talk about that.
That's crazy.
I'm 100% sure you're a generational curse breaker. How does that feel? Like that weight, that strong weight that you have to carry, like what is that like for you?
It's hard because to everybody else, or to most, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. Like, you know, why you always got to be the deep one? Lord, just come to the event and be all right. But it is that serious, because if we don't stop it, it's going to keep happening. And y'all will keep praying stuff off that requires a pill. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like some imbalance requires a freaking pill, and that's okay. And you can still preach.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it is difficult, but I have a really strong foundation with God. Like, I love him, and I can go like, yo, straight up, God. Like, I don't have no these and thou for him. Yo, God, what is happening right now? Like, I need your help. And he gives me instruction, and I'm learning to just be okay in my obedience and letting it go. As hard as that can be sometimes. But knowing that he's there and that he's wanting me to do this. So my mindset is always, okay, if this is something he's requiring, something I'm obedient to, then it has to be promised at the end of it. So I just keep going. Even though I have no idea what's going to happen with it, I just keep on rolling.
I think for me, I'm so happy that I went to school. I always tell people that when I went to school for counseling, that was probably like the best degree I've ever received. And it wasn't because of like just to add the title to my name. It was because it helped heal me in so many ways. And I used to look at things like my grandmother was a bootlegger, right? And, you know, my grandmother had 10 kids. My mom and all of them, they went to foster care. They were broken. My mom was molested. You know, all these different things happened. And so I would see that trauma is the things that I did not want to go through. Like, nope, I don't want to do this. Nope, I don't want to have children because I know what it's like when my mom struggled. My grandmother had to struggle because she had kids. Like, all of those things because I saw the generational. So what I learned to do in a certain sense is to look at the strength in those women. Yes, my grandmother was a bootlegger. She didn't do it because it was fun. She was doing it to make sure her kids had somewhere to live and they could eat. Yes, my mom struggled, but she went to work every day. If that meant she had to catch the bus to get to work or she had to walk, she made it happen. So even though they struggle, the strength, and that's a strong word, but the strength in that is looking at the positive, like, yes, these people are resilient. So being able to say I have this resiliency in my bloodline as well is a way to be able to kind of cheer yourself on when you're trying to fight all the generational curses, because it's hard. When you look at breaking that generational curse, it doesn't mean like, oh, I did this, so everything is going to be okay. It means no. Everything is going to hit you from the right and the left because it's going to see, can you beat it? And if you can't, then it's going to continue to go on. So I think just trying to look at things from the positive of, I don't want this to continue any longer. And if I have to be the sacrifice.
If I have to be the sacrifice.
So be it.
Ain't that something? The same way he was for us. Because somebody has to.
Yes.
Like, somebody has to die in this thing. And not necessarily physically, but I have to die in this every day because I can't do what I want to do. I can't say what I want to say. I can't respond how I want to respond. I can't be petty like I know I can be. You know what I'm saying? Woo, baby. I mean, I be having some good stuff.
Yes. Lined up, like written out.
And then when people come at you, you know, it's ready right there. And then God shut you down. Because in dying, that means you can't do and say what you want to do and say, unfortunately. And you can't be everywhere. You can't be around everything. You can't listen to everything and everybody. And so some would say that's acting funny.
Exactly.
Some would say you think you better than. And it's not that. It's that I know what I have to do to stay sane.
Yes.
So that I can keep fighting for y'all. You might want to leave me alone.
I think that goes back to parent, like with moms. I think at a certain age, you have that point where it's like, I just wish I could sit down and tell you all the things that I really feel. But then you have to be mature in the situation and say, if I say that, does it cripple this person that I love so deeply? Or does it free me? So where do you go?
I think it's one of those things that you really have to look within yourself to know if you're ready for it. Because you have to be ready for either direction. And if you can say in your heart you're ready for either one, go for it. I'm all about that. So in the project I'm working on and in conversations I've had with my own mom, I had to be ready for what could come. And if you're not ready mentally for that, for the lash out, for the you lying, for the cuss out, or for the embrace, then you shouldn't do it. Right? But you should make sure you run through all that in your head and be at peace with, if it goes this way, I'm good. If it goes that way, I'm good. If it's silent, God give me something, but I'm good.
Stand up and punch me in my throat.
Like, can you be at peace? You know what I'm saying? And not be ready to go to the city jail next. Can you do it and still maintain your level of peace and who you are and not allow yourself to be, to come down on that ignorant level, on that petty level? Can you allow yourself so for instance, I had an anthology I was a part of where I first shared, that's a little bit of my story, right? And I talked about how I remember my mom being out, stealing and doing stuff, and there was no food in the house. Like, I was eating mayonnaise sandwiches, syrup sandwiches, which was the bomb, by the way. And, sugar water, all that little hood stuff people hear about. No, that was real life. But we had everything, though. Like, you talk about shoes, clothes, and then we had it, but no food in there. And so it was funny because she got the book, which she stole, by the way. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. She got the book and then called me and was like, yo, like, you putting this stuff in here? You saying this? I mean, I know you're trying to get sales. I was like, wait. I don't need no money like that, sis. Hold on. And she was like, I know you're trying to get sales and everything, but we always had food. Cause like that's a thing for her. Like she don't play, when it come to children eating and stuff. Like, oh no, like you're not gonna say you ain't ate at her house. And so I was like, okay, well, let's think about it. So I understand how you feel, but let's be clear. Number one, I don't need to amp up my life to get any type of book sale or attention. I don't need that. Two. I don't know if you remember, but you used a lot of drugs. Then, even now, you struggle. So maybe you don't remember that there were some times that we just didn't have. And she said, I mean, you could be right, but blah, 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 blah. And so for me, you ain't got to say you was wrong, but I know you was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, girl, you wasn't present all the time there, so... It's moments like that. I had to be prepared for that because even with my father, he said something to me one time with my first children's book, just helping start that conversation about incarceration to young children. I put in there about my mom and dad, being away for most of my life, and he said, what's up with this in the book? What you putting this out here for? I mean, yeah, it happened. Like what you? And I was just like, well, for me. I feel like in order for me to talk about a subject matter as sensitive as this, I have to earn my right to be heard by this audience. And so me putting my personal business out there means something to them. I mean, yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying, but, I didn't know you was going to put it out there like that. But is it true?
Very true. That's interesting. I had a couple of weeks ago, we went out for brunch. It was my mom and my brother and I and my niece and my mom. This is probably the second time in like a couple of weeks time span she said to us, she was like, y'all didn't know we were poor. And so I looked at my brother and he was just kind of like quiet. I was like, yes, we did know we were poor. And she was like, we always had lights. We had this. I was like, yeah, but we walked everywhere. All my clothes was from my cousins. Like I wore Pro Wings. I got joked on about it. Like I get it. Yes, we had lights. We had this. And I think probably because of her experience with her mom of probably not having lights sometimes, not having food, her response was, for me, being better is we had food, we had lights, you know what I'm saying? So I had to look at it from her perspective too, but it almost kind of like, it looked like it hurt her when she realized that we knew that we were poor. Yeah. And I was like, I think parents don't acknowledge what kids actually see. We see it. I remember, like, I remember those days. I remember my dad, like, my mom and my dad divorced when I was 2, but I remember my dad sometimes helping my mom financially to make sure she didn't know that I saw that stuff, but I remember all of those things. I remember my mom having to use my allowance sometimes to get on the bus. I remember that stuff. But for her, she's looking at it as like, she's looking at her come up from, where she's been. Yeah. So it's just amazing how those, and parents, they take offense to that. Oh, yeah. They take offense to that.
Because they did their best.
They did the best that they could. And not negating that, but also understanding, even though that was your best, it was still a form of pain for me.
It was.
Because then I realized, like, now I know this is not what I want for my kids. I don't want my kids to have to wear someone else's clothes. I don't, And they may come up and say, well, Mom, we struggle because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah. However, we all have our ways of limiting, people's experiences because we felt like we did the best that we could. So that is very important. I want to talk to you about something, and I kind of see this a lot with people who have been molested. And I know of one person who I think is one of the greatest people alive, a girl that I was blessed to mentor, and she had been molested by someone, and the guy and her mom ended up getting married after her mom knew. She still loves her mom. She still respects her mom to this day. And I remember when she kind of told her story, I was just like,
wow, that's big.
Whew.
Yeah.
I know my personal experiences with being molested. And there's no way in the world that I could respect my mother.
Yeah.
or have a I think the love would never die, but I don't know if I could have a relationship.
Right.
And so when I looked at her, I was like, man, you have a different type of love. Like, that's that Jesus love that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Because I haven't gotten to that place yet in life. So there are a lot of people who know, like, some people may say, oh, it's, the crazy uncle who touched kids, and they just kind of laugh and brush it off, which is definitely not cool.
Not at all.
But because of those experiences, a lot of moms either say, girl, we all had that happen to us, or I don't believe you. If it's their boyfriend, I don't believe you, because I'm not leaving my man for you.
For you?
So, or what did you do? How did you dress around him?
What are you saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that it happens a lot in the Black community.
Yeah.
But we all just kind of brush it over with it happened to all of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything.
It's crazy because my best friend, I'll never forget us having a conversation, which was like something that just shook my world. I'll never forget me saying something like that to her. Like, like everybody been touched, something like that.
Yeah.
And she said, not me.
My body is...
Girl, when I tell you, I never forgot that. That girl said, oh no, I've never had that happen to me. And I'm sitting over here like, wait a minute now. So it was that moment that I said, well, maybe this just ain't all the way right.
Yes.
Because she was probably the first person in America. Black.
But isn't that crazy though? Isn't that crazy that she's the anomaly? That's crazy.
What you mean that didn't happen to you? Every other girl I talked to that had happened to them. You normal? You ain't had that struggle? Okay then. Well, congratulations, I guess. It's crazy because it is something that is just, again, normalized, right? So it's that whole, again, trauma being normalized in our community again. And molestation is just something that happens to every little girl. And what always is so crazy to me is how everybody know this uncle do this. Everybody know this granddaddy do this, right? Everybody know.
Or aunt.
Or auntie, right? Everybody know that it's happening by this one relative because it happened to them. But for whatever reason, they find a way to bring you back around them.
Yep.
Do they just think it ain't going to happen to you? They think... Oh, no, they did it to me. They know better than to touch you. No. They touched your mama and you. You know they're going to touch your baby. But I think it's something where, like, we look at, again, trauma. There are more of us who take to the trauma. So there are more of us who have been molested, who become molesters, than there are of us who have been molested and say, never again. Won't be me or any other girl in my bloodline or anybody else I know. I will shut you down before you touch another one.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the last time I read, it was like, talking about big number, like 75%, 80 something. Like, it was a huge number of how many it is of us who psychologically endure some type of trauma like that. Or even the little boy who sat in the corner crying and shaking when he saw his mama beat. But yet, for some strange reason, he found himself at 16 and 17 popping his girlfriend, right? It scared him to death, and it was uncomfortable for him, and he hated it. But that's what he saw. That's what he knew, and that's who he became. So sometimes, even in this whole thing, it's like, again, goes back to being that curse breaker, right? Being that generational person to stand up. At some point, somebody's going to have to do it. But it all starts with a choice. Like, did you like it? Chances are you didn't. But for some people, again, trauma does something to your brain.
Yeah.
So for some little boy who was touched all, for years growing up, now he becomes the rapist in the community. Where do you think it comes from? There is not a person that I know that is someone who is a molester or who has done something crazy sexually to any type of child, woman, boy, or girl, who didn't have that done to them. And that's always crazy to me. Even people that's locked up, you talk to them and it's just like, wow, that's crazy. So you had it happen to you. And then all of a sudden these urges started happening for you. Urges that you weren't born with now. But because this was something that you endured and that nobody helped you with, now this is who you are. Now, although you have the choice, it's still hard for you to fight the urge not to.
Yes. And that's what people fail to realize. Like, you see these kids or these girls and you think they're just super promiscuous and all of this stuff. Well, what you don't understand is it doesn't matter what age you unlock that.
Yeah.
You have opened up this avenue for sexual urges to happen.
Period. Yeah.
And so people you're looking at, so the next time anybody who's listening today, the next time you see a little girl who may, twitch a little faster than you think she should, don't just automatically assume that this little girl is fast and she loves Cardi B.
Right.
You don't know what could have happened. You don't know what could have been unlocked in that little girl. So, and unless, or little boy.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're willing to say, you know what, I wonder if I can spend some time with this child to help them out.
A conversation.
Then don't judge, because it will change the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely.
It really will. And so, and with parents, and I think sometimes when parents see or they know that it's happened to their child, they become muffled because they don't know how to handle it. They just say, well, this is what I did. This is how I got through it. So they'll get through it too.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not the right thing either. Because for most of them, what they did was build this wall, right? And these unrealistic boundaries for life. So don't ever trust nobody. Yeah. Don't ever. Girl, what am I supposed to?
My mom was like, you can't stay in so-and-so house. You can't stay at none of your friends' house. You can't do this. It still didn't prevent it from happening.
And it doesn't. I know so many people. They had the rule of laws, the things that they couldn't do to make sure that this doesn't happen to them. And it still became a part of their story.
And it still becomes a part of your story.
Yeah.
And so we have to have those conversations. I think the biggest thing is something that you said in the very beginning about understanding that mom may never say sorry. Mm-hmm. And you got to be okay with that. Yeah. However, you got to figure out how you can break through that moment. So like I was telling my husband the other day, when I was younger and my mom would make me upset or angry, I would write her letters.
Nice.
And I would just like leave it in the house somewhere so that she could read it. And then sometimes she would read it and she would come fuss me out. And it's okay. It's all right.
You got it out.
I got it out.
Yeah.
But that was my way. And I know that I am an anomaly because I should not be the person that I am today. Mm-hmm. Like, I should not.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time I'm 50 shades of effed up. Like, so there's a lot, but being able to know at that age or being able to have God, like, deposit in me, do this. Like, because you're 6 or 7, you don't know to write a letter to get something out. No. I'm just doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was just my way of being able to, because I didn't have a voice. Mm-hmm. Like, I felt like my voice was broken.
Yeah.
So the only way I could get things out was by writing. Mm-hmm. So I say to people, and you can kind of chime in on this too, for a person who may not be able to have that open conversation with their parent. Like, I remember when I went to counseling and my counselor was like, my therapist said, well, won't you bring your mom to... I looked at her and laughed like, you don't know my mom.
You mean the mom I've been telling you about?
You want me to bring my mom in here? My mom... Girl, no. But I think that even that was about 10 years ago, but I feel like now, where I am now, the blessing is I wouldn't need that therapist. So I feel like I'm becoming to get at this place where if I need to have a conversation with my mom, I can have it.
Yeah.
And if it's good, because my mom, I think she's becoming more receptive to certain things that I say. I just have to learn how to say it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I think there are a lot of people who may not be blessed to have that opportunity. I don't think I'll be able to share everything that I want to with my mom. So let me not make it like a picture perfect world.
Right.
However, for the people who aren't able to have that conversation, I say this. You need to sit down with someone who can represent her for you in that moment and say whatever you need to get out.
Yeah.
Or you need to write it out.
Yeah.
Because if not, you'll spend your whole life trying not to be your mom.
And you become
your mom.
Yeah, indirectly.
It
happens all the time. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you don't expect to happen, but it is. So I had to come to grips with, although I'm not a heavy drug user like my mother, I know that addiction runs in my bloodline. So I know that when it comes to food and my emotions, maybe I might not snort dope.
But I snort some donuts.
But I would devour. You understand? Or even when it comes to, a social glass of wine. For some people, that's nothing, and, you could drink and still be saved, But for me, knowing addiction runs in my bloodline, I know that I shouldn't engage in it because I know one glass leads me to 4 bottles. Whereas other people, one glass is just a glass or 2, socially at a wedding. And whereas I find myself after the wedding at Kroger or grocery store buying a couple bottles.
Yeah.
So I do believe that when it comes to the whole healing process of your mama trauma, I like to say, you certainly should write it out. You certainly should talk to somebody if you can't necessarily talk to her. Because at the end of the day, to really just kind of wrap it up, is that forgiveness Has to happen. There is no way that you can live a healthy life, a real life where you're not really existing, just getting up, going to work, going to school, come home, same everything. Like, in order not to exist, you got to forgive. There is no way that you can expect any type of blessing. There's no way you can expect to live this abundant life that you want to cry and shout about, and you ain't forgave your mama. Like, that ain't possible. So even without the apology, be big enough to forgive her anyway. Be big enough to understand that maybe, just maybe, she got a story too. Just maybe. And even if it's not the case, wrap your mind around that it is the case so that you can move forward and parent the way you should. Be the leader that you can be in your business, in your community. But there's no way to do any of those things when you building the brand, getting all these colors, right? Getting your website and doing all that. But you ain't right.
Exactly.
You your brand. So if you don't know who you are, really, because you got all this unforgiveness harbored up inside of you, all that other stuff is just a waste of money and time.
It is.
Because it's going to crumble right before your eyes. And then you're going to sit there and say, well, how did that happen? Why is this always happening to me, God? Why me again? Well, it's because you have to be willing and obedient. So you willing to do all these amazing things to change the world, but you ain't obedient in the forgiveness that I told you needed to do.
That's big. Yeah. And what people don't realize about forgiveness is if you harbor that, I think sometimes we think that if we don't forgive, it's like our power.
Yeah.
It's our power.
Yeah.
Like, I hold something over you.
Yeah.
Like you can't move in life because I don't forgive you. They're going to still move. They're going to still do all the wonderful things. But inside of you, you have this cancer. Like this.
Literally a cancer. Like literally, it affects your health. I had a mother once say to me, because I do a lot of stuff with the incarcerated population. And I had a mother I talked to about possibly thinking about forgiving her daughter because that was a huge struggle for her, she would mention in my class. And in the conversation with this mother, she said to me, I can't forgive her, Q. I just can't, because when I forgive her, she's going to think her behavior was right. And I said, wow, no, that has nothing to do with forgiveness. God forgive me all the time. And I know I ain't right. And he know I won't right. But if you don't forgive her, you'll never build onto anything. And you're the one who's hurting and miserable with the headaches and anxiety and panic attacks trying to figure out where it's coming from. No, it all stems back to that one level. Forgiveness.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. This has been amazing. I could go on for hours about this because it is a very good topic, and we had to start the conversation somewhere. We just have to. So, with all of that said, where can people find you?
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is definitely a platform of topics that need to be discussed. So I'm grateful to have been the chosen one.
Yes.
So you can find me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at author Q, like the Quniana Futrell, across all platforms. Follow me there to keep up with everything I got going on.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Oh, you have something coming up. Can you tell people about that?
Yes. So
yesterday.
The marriage thing.
Yes.
I'm like, Lord, which thing? So we have Unleash the Champion in Your Marriage class that's coming up. It's October the 19th from 11 to 2 in Portsmouth. Tickets are on Eventbrite, but this is not for everybody. This is for those who are married but want to succeed not only in your business but in your marriage as well. Those of you who are in business and find yourself saying, my spouse don't support me, they just don't get it, I don't understand, or you find yourself thriving in business and just not in your relationship. Like, that's not cool at all, because you can't have one and not the other. So we are going to address those topics that are swept under the rug. We are going to expose the enemy for the liar he really is. And we are going to build healthy families again. All
right. Well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. And come back. This is Forbidden. God is like